Hello and welcome to today's video. Today we'll be discussing about the P2 of IDBP3, which is the protection part, the protection of your wealth. Now you have accumulated this much of wealth, and if you cannot protect it now, others are going to take it away from you. There are sharks moving around all across you, lawyers, cheaters, people who want to snatch it away from you. It's a very, very dangerous world around you. And once they know that you have money, they are going to run after you. Salesmen, companies will try and sell you some policies. They'll pitch in some products or this and that. There are numerous companies out there who is trying to market their products, and when they know that you have money, they are going to come after you, and they are going to hit your brain so hard with their promotions, with their advertisements, where tricks and tactics. They are going to snatch it away from you. So it's your job, it's your duty to protect the wealth that you have created. It's even more important, and it's even more tougher than making money. Making money, building wealth is far easier than protecting it. Protecting your wealth and letting it grow under your supervision, that's the prime importance in today's world. So this is a very, very important aspect of this personal finance journey of IDBP3, the P2 of IDBP3. Protection from lawsuits is one of the prime areas which you need to focus on. Why protection from lawsuits? Now, when lawsuit claims comes into picture, your properties are dragged into court and they are attached to whatever the lawsuit is on. And if you lose, those properties will be lost. So the basic concept of protecting your asset is control everything, own nothing. This is your property, you're controlling it, but you don't own it anymore. So if this is the scenario with you, and if you are dragged into the court for any kind of lawsuit, your property remains safe. People buy a house, people buy a car in their name, people buy properties, stocks, assets, this and that, everything in their name. That's the biggest mistake. That's where they become more vulnerable to asset protection. Any kind of lawsuit that goes into court against that person, court will attach all those assets, and if he or she loses the deal, if the claimant demands a part of your property, you have to part with it. It will be the court's order to give it to him. So you cannot escape this. The best way to escape is don't have anything in your name. No cars, no houses, nothing in your particular name. Keep yourself free from all the assets. Now, how is this possible? Now, there are two different kinds of asset classes, rather, I would say. One is the dangerous asset class, the other one is much safer asset class. What are the dangerous asset classes? Just think, danger means anything that has the potential to destroy another human life, or it has the potential to bring destruction to another person. If that happens, the other person is going to drag you to court. And once you're dragged into court, your properties are tied with you, you have your complete asset in your name. The court is going to attach everything, and then if you lose the case, the other person might take everything away from you. So what are the dangerous properties that you can have in your name? House, maybe car, any machinery, anything that has the potential to damage the other person physically. So if there is a physical damage, or if there is any kind of damage, even if it's a mental damage, or even if it's a psychological damage, or whatever it is, you own something that is damaging the person in front of you, he's going to sue you. So the dangerous assets are car, house, building, maybe hospital, or anything, any physical property that has the potential to fall down and cause destruction to anyone or the person in front of you, and he can sue you out. So these kind of assets should never be in your name. Have a different company, limited liability company set up, and push these assets into that company. So if anything happens to you because of those dangerous assets, your whatever you own personally will not be affected. Now, what you own personally, what you can own personally, you can own safer assets like any kind of paper assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. These are paper assets. Paper assets are much more safer assets, stocks, bonds, commodities, and investments which are paper based, which just have a digital connection. It doesn't have the capacity to harm physically, provide any physical damage to the other person. These kind of assets are much safer. You can own it in your name, but it's still advisable. As I said, asset protection, the basic of asset protection is control everything, own nothing. So you have different accounts, different corporate houses separately set up for different kinds of assets, and you push these assets into those companies, and let those companies be the owner of the assets, and you control the company. That way, if you yourself as an individual, if you're dragged into court for any reason, and if you have not been involved in any kind of fraudulent activity, then these assets will still remain safe with you. You'll still be controlling them. You might lose the case, you might have a different outcome from the court. Whatever happens in the court, that's okay, but the court cannot attach these assets while hearing your complaint, provided except if you are involved in a fraudulent activity, if you're a fraud, if you have cheated somebody, then the court can take anything and everything that is attached to you. The court will take anything and everything that is related and associated to you. So provided if you're not a cheater, then you are safe. If you use legal entities like corporate houses, LLP companies, HUF, trusts, these are formed to save yourselves from court cases, litigation cases, so that you can segregate your assets outside and control them separately, and nothing happens to you in case you're sued in court. So this is one. The second aspect of asset protection is protection from ignorance. Now, this is a very, very dangerous scenario, I would say. Protection from ignorance is something like, I wouldn't know how to build and keep my asset if I don't know anything. That is ignorance. Now, as people say, ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is not bliss. If you don't know, you're going to cost a huge amount of money. People are just going to take everything out of your pocket. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know what you have. You have to know how to control what you have. You have to know how to save what you have. If you cannot, then people are just going to take it away from you. The perfect example is a father who has earned millions and billions, and the son doesn't know anything about it. When the father dies, the son just gets the $1 million or $1 billion from his father, and he really doesn't know what to do. And he spoils everything. By the time his life comes to an end, he is either in deep debt or he is completely washed out. He doesn't know what to do. There are innumerous examples that can show you that an extremely wealthy father has left behind millions of assets for his children, but the most important thing that he did not leave behind is how he produced those assets and how he safeguarded those assets, so that his children going further can save those assets and build on it. The father gave a concrete foundation to their children, but they destroyed it completely. Now, why this happens? Typically, there are two kinds of mindsets that comes into play or works in this place. One is either the father has not achieved anything. So in that case, the father is shy, he is ashamed, is feeling guilty. He is guilty of admitting the fact that his father or maybe the grandfather has given him enough, but he laundered it all away. He's guilty of that, and so he doesn't disclose anything to his next generation because he doesn't know how to say that I have floundered. He doesn't know how to say that I have made a mess out of the property that was given to me. I could not control it. That's an ego. That's the shame. That's the guilt that that the father or the parent is facing. His ego is so big that he cannot admit that he has failed. For such children, it's on the children to work hard, find out what's right, and find out how to build wealth and protect it for themselves. The other scenario is an ego. It's that false ego that deprives him of speaking to his child, that deprives him of speaking to his daughter, son, about the properties that he has, about the way he has handled wealth, the way he thought about money, the way he worked on and built his assets over the lifetime. And he thinks his son is 35 years younger to him. There is no point discussing anything with him. He wouldn't understand. That's the first misconception that every parent has. The child will not understand. They will definitely understand. You speak to him first and then you decide whether they understand or not. So never miss out on this. Ego is the biggest destruction when it comes to asset protection. It's going to spoil anything and everything that you have accumulated, or anything and everything that your child or your next generation is going to accumulate in their life. So this is how the concept of protection works. The best is, as the thumb rule says, do not own anything. Have everything, have separate entities created, and push those assets into entities. Push your assets to an HUF if you're eligible for that. Push it to a private trust if you can open one. So push your assets to whatever, maybe the amount that you have, maybe 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, whatever it is. Put that in a private trust. You yourself be the trustee for now. See the consequences, talk to your lawyer, talk to the CA, see the consequences, see the taxation that's coming through. Find out the best possible way you can form the trust. Find out the best possible way you can allocate your funds into the HUF so that you get the best out of the taxation part, and then control your assets through trusts, companies, HUFs, all these things. Don't own anything on your name, not even the car. That's the biggest mistake that almost all of us does. What if you run across somebody on the streets? The person who dies, their family is going to come after you, right? And they're going to come after you big time. You might own a 5 lakh rupee car, or maybe a 3 lakh, 4 lakh rupee small segment hatchback car. But if you run over someone who is influential, he is going to screw your life. Absolutely. And the next thing is, once you're done with it, once you have protected your assets from the illegal sharks, the next best or the next important thing is to protect your assets by disclosing and teaching your children how to do, what to do and what not to do. So protection against ignorance, this is the prime important thing. So keep that in check. Now my favorite, the checklists. Checklist number 1, never associate any liability with your personal assets. So any kind of liability, if there is a possibility that money can go out from a particular channel, do not link that to your assets. So assets should be separate, liabilities should be separate. That's checklist number 1, prime importance as the first priority. Checklist number 2, keep the dangerous assets safe on a different entity, keep the safe assets safe on a different entity. So that again, as I said, do not associate anything which is dangerous to the one which is not dangerous. Checklist number 3, again, it's just a continuation from checklist number 2, is that you should form different entities to hold different assets, the dangerous assets, the safe assets, so that if anything goes wrong with those dangerous assets, at least you're safe on the safe assets. The entities that holds the safe assets will keep them safe. Checklist number 3, again, this goes to check yourself on the very prime statement of asset protection, which is control everything, own nothing. So run a rigorous check on yourself to see how much this statement is true for you. How much is it? How much of asset do you still own in your name? If you have 10% in your name, your assets are 10% riskier. So be safe. Absolutely throw away everything that you own into different legal entities and control them. Checklist number 5 is plan your asset protection. So every with time the laws change, the scenarios change, new things come up into picture, the world is changing, new asset classes are coming in. So you should be sitting with your lawyer and the CA to understand the ways of safeguarding your assets. It's not just that I've done this is fine, it's going to save me from anything and everything that's coming up in the future. That may not be always true. All of a sudden you might have a different amendment in the law, and the government would say, no, this is not the correct way that we have been doing so far, so we are changing it, and from now the law is this, and this new law is going to be very dangerous for you. So you need to get this update from your CAs, from your lawyers. So have a regular check, maybe once in every 2-3 years, or maybe once in a year if that is possible, and let them review your assets and let them tell you if there are any amendments required, and if required you should be changing them immediately. And checklist number 6, keep your next generation informed. So if they don't know what's going on, if they don't know what you have, if they don't know how to control what you have, if they don't know what's coming to them once you're not there around, okay, and one day suddenly when you die you throw a huge pile of a couple of $1 million to your son and he doesn't know what to do with it, he will destroy the entire corpus. So be safe, inform them, let them help them understand, help them take a decision as to how they can safeguard their assets, and then move on. This will give you a peace of mind that your hard work, your assets that you have built all your life is in safe hands, and it's not going to be destroyed and planted away. It's going to be with you and with your generations to come. So this education down the line is very much important. Okay, so that's all about asset protection. The thumb rule of asset protection is own nothing, control everything. That's it. See you next time. Till then, SG signing off.